Hi, and welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm Dee Dee Carney, and today my guest is Brian Farkas, who's running for NC House District 9. Welcome, Brian.
Hi, Dee Dee. Thank you so much for having me today. It's great to be with you.
Yes, local boy runs for,
That's right.
for Congress.
That's right. Running State House, ready to make a change.
That's right.
Make a difference.
Yes, wonderful. So, I know you grew up here, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And you went to school here.
Mm-hmm.
And you went to UNC.
I did.
As a couple other hundreds of us did, I
Yeah.
guess, yes. So tell me something else that I don't know about
Sure,
you.
yeah. Well, Pitt County's home, and
Okay.
it's an honor to be able to run, to serve this area, because it's through the schools and the community programs. This is the place that invested in me. And so
Right.
I want that investment to start paying off. Like you said, I'm a proud product of Pitt County schools. Went to Elmhurst and Aycock and J.H. Rose.
Good.
And then I went to UNC Charlotte for undergrad.
Okay.
And then I went to Carolina for my Master's of Public Administration at the School of Government.
Okay.
So
Okay.
really drawn towards the operational side of government
Yeah.
and making it work and making it efficient.
Okay.
And ready to bring some of that expertise to bear, because we really need it in
Right.
the capital. Yeah.
Exactly. So is that where you got the itch to run? Or
Well, I'd say I've always felt a call to serve. Didn't
Okay.
necessarily know what that was going to be.
Okay.
I've spent time working in the federal government. I worked for the United States Attorney's Office in Charlotte.
Okay.
And I think that's where I realized I was less drawn towards a law degree and
Right.
taking the next steps there, and more drawn towards the operational side of government.
Okay.
So that's why then I moved over to the School of Government and earned that master's degree. And then I worked for the federal government again for the National Institutes of Health,
Okay.
where I was an emergency management specialist.
Oh.
So it wasn't until I started seeing some of the decisions being made in Raleigh that I really felt left Eastern North Carolina behind.
Right.
That I said, maybe, working in the government service is great, but perhaps I need to take a look at the elected side, because that's where a lot of the big decisions that impact government service, that impact the private sector, that's where it's really being made.
Right.
And so I'm excited to kind of bring a voice that has worked in the public sector to bear, but also in the private sector. I've been there for about 6 or 7 years now.
Great, great. So lots of qualifications for this job. It always amazes me how people can decide to give up a couple of months, years out of their life to do this,
Right.
and we applaud you for that.
I appreciate it. I'm very fortunate. I'm 33 to be in a position where I can balance the demands of a private sector job, which I've got. I work for a small architecture firm,
Right.
but being able to balance that with what would be the demands of the legislature. I'm confident I can do both,
Right.
but very, very fortunate to be able to make that happen.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
All right. No wife to worry about yet, right?
I have a significant other.
Okay, okay.
But no, she's not my wife yet.
Okay, all right,
Right.
okay, all right. So there's lots of information on your website. I was very impressed. So
Thank you.
what would you say is your basic platform?
Great. Well, I'm running to be a champion for Eastern North Carolina and Pitt County. Too many times I feel like our communities are being left behind, and politicians in Raleigh, particularly in our legislature, are just playing games. It's about power, and it's not about people.
Right.
I'm running really hard on public education. Again, being a product of those schools, that matters. And time again, our teachers are not getting the support they need to be successful, to equip our children to take the next step of success. So whether it's the facilities themselves, whether it's teacher pay, teaching assistants, making sure that the lottery is the funding that we were promised is going where it needs to. Public schools need a voice, and what better than to have someone who's been in those hallways.
Right.
And my brother's an educator as well.
Oh, good.
And so he's in my ear very
Okay,
much
good.
about the realities of public education.
good.
I'm also running hard on access to health care that is affordable and doesn't break the bank. Eastern North Carolina is a unique animal. We've got a lot of rural hospitals teetering on the edge financially,
Right.
and we need to take some much needed steps in reforming our system and covering more people. And I think we've got some solutions to make that happen.
Yes.
And then I'm running I mentioned it a little bit earlier, my frustration with government itself getting things done. We have got to fix our legislature and our broken politics. And I want to use my experience not only in the public sector, but that I've got in the private sector. I want to do that and reform government itself so that we can fix the foundational issues that we have that'll let us get bold on education
Right.
or healthcare or the environment, issues that that really require bold leadership. And right now our legislators are too hamstrung. They can't move. We gotta give them that flexibility to get the job done.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You talked about the affordable health care access. I just love the fact that Greenville is, I considered it a small town when I got here almost 40 years ago. It's growing leaps and bounds. They're calling us Raleigh East, I guess, now. But, you know, I think we're just the perfect size. And I think with the resources here with the medical school and the hospital, of course, for the whole area, that we're in a unique position to do a lot of things for the whole half of the third of the state.
Yeah, we are the gateway to the east.
Exactly.
You can get anywhere you need in Eastern North Carolina probably within 2 hours from Greenville.
Exactly.
And I think we really need to embrace that.
Right.
I mean, like you said, we've got Vidant Healthcare, which is the major healthcare engine east of 95. We've got Brody. How fortunate we are to have East Carolina and Brody and what a great partnership they've created with Vidant to train the next generation of healthcare providers.
Exactly.
And there's a lot that I want to achieve as a legislature to offer that support. First and foremost, we've got to expand Medicaid. Pitt County, if we expanded Medicaid, has about 13,000 additional people that we could cover tomorrow if we did the right thing. And let's be clear, Medicaid is money that you and I and every taxpayer is already paying for that is currently going to other states. I'd rather have that money come here. And it's at no additional cost to us, so let's make that happen. The second thing I want to do is make sure we've got more investments in the facilities we have here. Brody School of Medicine's facility was built in, what, the 70s, late 70s. Governor Hunt was an important part of bringing that here. Former Chancellor Leo Jenkins had a vision for this. It's a 40-year-old, 50-year-old building, and working in an architecture firm, I've seen that it's time for some much-needed upgrades, because if we're going to train the next generation of physicians and nurses, we've got to be able to recruit them with top technology. So I want to definitely work with Governor Cooper and the state legislature to make sure that we can fund a new facility fully. I think most responsibly that's probably done through a bond, so we can have all the money at once and get going on that. I think that's really important. And then broadband, internet access is an important part of healthcare delivery now. I think COVID has revealed
really,
that quite a bit. You know, it's an incredible vulnerability, and we need, if we were to expand broadband in Pitt County, that would cover 11,000 additional households.
Wow.
And when in an era where, you know, social distancing may be required, or we're trying to reduce the amount of people having to come into the emergency room, perhaps telehealth could be an important part of that, an early diagnosis, whether it's getting a patient in front of a doctor or a nurse practitioner or a nurse, somebody who can make that initial diagnosis and say, all right, you need to come in, or you're okay, and we'll get that figured out. So, and finally on healthcare, Eastern North Carolina is a chronic care state. We are always dealing with, whether it's obesity or cancer, diabetes, we're dealing with this after the fact. And I'd love to see us transition our healthcare system to one of preventative care. I know former Dean Cunningham, Dr. Cunningham, talked about that a lot when he was over at Brody. And I'm a believer. And that's going to require not only our healthcare partners, but it's going to require conversations in our educational community. It's going to require conversations with our faith-based partners, a really comprehensive, integrative approach to how do we get healthy foods to people, healthy living how do we ingrain that as a culture. The benefits of that to us are immense, not only because people will just be living longer lives and more productive lives, but we'll save money in our healthcare costs.
That's
so
true.
Yeah, there's a lot I want to do on healthcare, but I think having those lived experiences here in Pitt County, educating myself on how to best make these changes happen makes me ready to get to work.
Well, I know you're probably a proponent, like I am, of our community college, which does a great job with the training. So that's good too. So bipartisan is not a word you hear much in the state legislature, or any legislature for that matter these days.
Unfortunately, you're right.
That's right. So what would you do to work across the aisle?
Well, I think what I bring to bear first and foremost is a history of working across the aisle here in the community. And I think I'm unique in that I'm the only candidate in my race who has been sleeves rolled up in this community for years And I'm talking about service that doesn't involve, whether I'm getting paid or not. I've been the president of the Museum of Art and helped keep the doors open when we thought there was some financial issues. And I've been on the Public Transportation and Parking Commission, and we redid the bus routes so that people could get to work easier. I've been immersed, and on all of those different volunteer services, you have to leave politics at the door. And I have Democrats on the board, Republicans on the board, unaffiliated on the board. I grew up in a household of unaffiliated voters, and I was raised that you listen to everybody, and everyone has value in their experiences, and consensus is a good thing. We can find compromises. So I think going into Raleigh, having people locally who can put those calls in not only to Democrats to Republicans, but say, you can work with Farkas. They validate that work. I think that'll go a long way. But then I think as a legislator, I've got some concrete solutions in place that I think would help us get back to making sure that government works for people, not special interests, and helps reduce this power-hungry energy that is all over the legislative building right now. One of the things I think we need to do first and foremost, and frankly I've made a pledge that it's going to be the first bill that I want to address, is an independent redistricting commission to get politicians, both sides, out of the business of drawing their own legislative districts. That's got to stop. Democrats are guilty of doing it for 100 years in North Carolina, and then when Republicans took the majority the last decade, they brought a whole new level of technology to bear, and with surgical precision they have cut voters, they have divided communities and neighbors. I mean, it's amazing to knock doors in the primary like I did in one street in the same neighborhood as in one district and the others in the other. It undermines communities. So I think it sends a really clear signal, particularly if I'm a Democratic legislator, we're in a Democratic majority, that I'm willing to make it very clear that we're going to give some power up here, and we're going to pass this independent redistricting commission and make sure that it's about the people, and politicians are not picking their voters. Voters should be picking their politicians. We need to have a real conversation about the role of money in our politics. We've got to have campaign finance reform. I am for reforming so much of special interest money is pouring into local elections, state elections, and it's unaccountable to you, to me, to anybody. And I think a local legislator should be accountable, and you should be able to track who's giving them money at any time. I mean, my campaign has to, and that's right, I want to do that. But too often, these special interest PACs are living a different world, and that's not okay with me. And then finally, we've got way too much access for lobbyists in our legislature, and too many legislators who are turning being a legislator into a lucrative lobbying career. You'll have someone go in, get elected, they'll do a few terms, and then all of a sudden, they are a lobbyist for one of the big firms out of Raleigh. And that's not what you should be going into elected office to. You should not be paving the way to a lucrative deal. You should be in the business of helping your people. And that's why I want to actually put in legislation to expand what is known as the cooling off period. You shouldn't be able to be a lobbyist for at least 5 years after you've served in the state legislature. Right now it's only 6 months. And if you watch the news, there were a number of legislators who just retired and resigned so that when the legislature comes back in for the next big session, they've hit that 6-month requirement. That's not okay. So let's take that head on. I think those are some foundational issues we can address so that government works for people again. We pull out some of these opportunities that currently exist for power to be the priority, and let's so we can get bold on the things that we need. I think it'll cultivate more authentic leaders, more people who reflect our population, and I'm excited to be a leader on those issues.
Good. Sounds like you are. I'm encouraged. So, can you talk a little bit more about your goals to create jobs and opportunities?
Yes. Eastern North Carolina is a different animal than Mecklenburg County or Wake County. We've got to make some strong investments in our quality of life, in our workforce, in order to get people to not only come here to be educated, whether it's at PCC or ECU, but stay here and call this place home. I love Eastern North Carolina. You don't got to sell me. I see what is wonderful in it, and I'm excited to lead it. But we have got to make some pretty big investments in order to equip us to compete to have companies come here
Right.
and people to stay. One of the things we've got to do is we've got to finish. Congressman G.K. Butterfield and former Congressman Jones were fantastic. They worked across the aisle to create the future interstate designation for US 264.
Right.
That needs to become Interstate 587, and there's some work that a legislator can do working with NCDOT to move us beyond future designation and make us an actual interstate. When you're attracting jobs and you want a big company to come here or expand,
You have
one
to
of the
have-
first check boxes is, do you have easy access to an interstate?
Right.
And so we've got to get that done. I also want to make sure that we're supporting working families. This current legislature is the first legislature in history to repeal the state earned income tax credit. That's a tax credit for working families. Often for families of 4 with kids that are barely making it above the poverty line. I want to reinstate the state earned income tax credit, probably at 5% of what the federal earned income tax credit is, and that's money that'll go right back into the pockets of working people who may need help paying for access to public transportation or childcare, which is a huge cost that is going up more and more, and we've got to talk about access to care for working families. But the state earned income tax credit, it's a little, it's a bit of a tongue twister. But it's, to me, very tangible, and I think it's something that could help out a lot of people and lift people up out of poverty so that they have the resources they need to kind of keep moving up. I think that's important. I am a proponent of raising the minimum wage, doing that incrementally to $15 over the next 5 years. Incremental is important so we can give our businesses that use the wage a little time to budget and account for it over the next few years.
Right.
But the cost of living is rising, and we are not paying employees in a way that they can keep up with that. So that, in combination with the earned income tax credit, could really help our economy, and it shares the burdens of that evenly across our economic system. So yeah, those are some of the big things I want to do. Definitely in the area of COVID, we have got to make sure that we are giving small businesses the support that they need, whether it's through a grant program and loans with low interest rates. I work for a small business. We are very fortunate, being architects ourselves, with a lot of projects that have community-based impacts. We were deemed an essential business, so we didn't have to make some of those same tough decisions that some other small businesses did. We were very blessed. Right. But at the same time, that could change at any minute, and we want to help small businesses, and I think our legislature has got to go to work to get that done. And where small businesses are such a critical backbone of the Pitt County economy, we need a very vocal voice who can make that happen.
Right.
So yeah, lots I want to do on that issue too, and I'm excited to make that happen. And I think that's going to require a legislator who can work across the aisle. Sell, like you mentioned, Greenville is a gateway. It's a hub for the entire East, and we need to think regionally to make that happen and take ourselves to the next level. But I'm a big believer in it. I think we can make it happen.
Oh, good. You reminded me of how many young people that we do lose to other larger cities, and it's because of all those things that you mentioned. So we definitely need to think about that to kind of keep them here.
Yeah, I got to serve on the City of Greenville's Comprehensive Planning Committee a few years back, and it was amazing to watch the statistics. You have a huge influx of our population, that is 18 to 21, maybe to 24 for grad students. That's ECU, that's Pitt. But then there was a huge drop-off. And all the way from 25 even into late 30s, we are not retaining people. And like I said, this is a great place to call home, and I want more people to see that. But that's why we've got to make sure that not only the jobs are here, but the job training is here, and that we are talking about quality of life and creative placemaking. That's why we've got to support organizations like the Museum of Art. People want experiences. They want things to do when they move a family here. They want strong schools. And it's a comprehensive effort, a lot of different issues, but that's the only way we're going to be able to keep people here. And I think once that happens, the sky's the limit. I really think that.
Your point about broadband, too, is well taken these days with everybody doing homeschooling so much or virtual learning. I mean, everybody needs more internet capacity than they ever have before.
That's right. We're seeing that firsthand, talking to a lot of educators who are not only having to teach in person now, but they're teaching live virtually, and they're teaching virtually on like a recorded session so
Right.
kids can
Right.
get that later. That's
Right.
3 tracks for teachers. Our
Right.
teachers are dealing with a whole lot right now,
Right.
and we really need to have their back.
Right.
But broadband's an important part of that, not only for the teacher side, but for the families.
Right.
And we've got to make that a critical priority, and I think it can walk hand in hand with some of our other infrastructure investments.
Mm-hmm.
If we coordinate with the Department of Transportation when they're putting in roads and bridges, and we
Right.
coordinate, we can make sure that not only are they laying down critical road infrastructure, but they
Right.
can be laying down the critical wiring and cabling we need too to go
Right.
ahead and get some of that that broadband infrastructure into the rural areas.
Yes.
Yeah. Grimesland, Simpson, that's all in this district.
Mhm.
Those are the areas we need to fight for.
Okay.
Make sure they got the same access to opportunity that everybody else does.
Okay. So your area encompasses
Yeah.
part of.
Great question.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, the district has evolved a little bit.
Okay.
House 9 is the eastern half of Pitt County. It's
Okay.
basically half of Greenville, starting at Memorial Drive and going east.
Okay.
It does have all of East Carolina's proper campus on it.
Okay.
And it does not have the university grid. That's now in Representative Smith's district.
Okay.
But outside of that eastern part of Greenville is in House 9, as well as the village of Simpson,
Okay.
the town of Grimesland,
Okay.
Shakad, Pactolus.
Okay.
And the good news about it is I grew up right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And so I know this district like the back of my hand.
Okay.
It's a great mix of city and suburban
Right.
and rural.
Right.
And it's got a lot to offer and a lot to showcase. And
Okay.
and I want to make sure people know how special it is.
Yeah.
And-
My husband grew up in Pactolus.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I would do a lot of work up there with their rural fire departments, and I try
Okay.
to support them. Our rural firefighters across the county are so important
Right.
as well. Pactolus is a special area.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is good. So, other than legislation, how do you intend to help the citizens of Pitt County?
This is where I'm also really excited because, yes, the first job of a legislator is to go and vote on behalf of his or her constituents.
Yes.
You got to be there, you got to show up, and I
Right.
plan on having a great attendance record to
Okay.
do just that.
Good.
But I think the job is so much more. It's what you make it, just like any other job. And I think when you are a state representative, you have the authority and the ability to leverage that office for good.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're talking about poverty in Pitt County, and we should be. Poverty in Pitt County has been over 20% for over 20 years. That makes us a persistent poverty county, and that's unacceptable.
Yes.
Yeah, we have got to do something, and it's going to require us to bring all of our partners together to make that happen. We need a tangible plan to get that number under 20%.
Okay.
So when I'm a legislator, yes, there are funding sources that we're going to need to be able to find at the legislative level for me to go to work for. But I want to bring people together. I want our state legislature to have a presence there, state government as a whole. But we need our business community to be a part of tackling poverty. We need nonprofit community to be a part of that. We need our faith-based partners to be a part of that. And whether we're going block by block through this community so we can assess where our vulnerabilities are, and then also we can say, all right, well, who's got what covered in terms of responsibilities? You know, if the interfaith clergy they do incredible work. Pastor Coles and his team, with some of the real short-term, making sure people are fed.
Right.
We don't want to duplicate that service. We want them to have that coverage.
Right.
But then we need to talk with our nonprofits over at Crossroads and some of our others for overnight housing, and then once we've got that handled, who's got that?
Right.
It's multifaceted. Everyone's got to be bought into a vision and a goal.
Right.
But I think a state legislator is uniquely positioned to actually get those people in the room
Right.
and bar the door and say, all right, we're not leaving until we get a solution on this, and we all know our place in this,
Right.
so that we can just stop with all the platitudes and we can get something done. And I'll tell you, if we could see that number, 20% going down year after year,
That would really.
wouldn't that just be something to motivate people in our
Yeah.
community?
Yeah.
And I think it would be incredible, and we
Yeah.
could really rally around it.
It sure would. And you're right, we've been working on it a long time, but not
Yeah.
making very much progress
Yeah,
on it.
there's some
We've
people
been
working
talking
really
about
hard.
it, I guess.
Yeah, people working really hard, but it's just
Right.
going to take a team approach.
Right.
And it's amazing, like President Truman once said, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't care who gets the credit.
Yeah.
I try to keep that in mind in
That's
all
right.
that I do,
Yeah.
and I think that's a fine example
Right.
of where we could really get some stuff done.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, we thank you so much. I was very much impressed that you were even on the teen court in your younger days.
Yes. Yeah, the Pitt County Teen Court is a local program near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
I got to give a lot of credit to my parents, particularly my mom.
For pushing?
I was raised that you get involved in as much. I did Little League baseball. I did a lot at Rose, but
Good.
if there was an opportunity in the newspaper, and that's
Right.
where my mom found Teen Court, she said,
Right.
"You're going to go volunteer for this and learn about it and check it out."
Oh,
And I was
good.
really blessed that I had a family that made me try a
Right.
lot of different stuff:
Yeah.
sports, music,
Right.
Teen Court.
Yeah.
And I did fall in love with that program because it's a really wonderful opportunity to interact at that time with my fellow peers
Right.
who maybe had gotten off on the wrong foot,
Right.
made some bad decisions, and it didn't throw them immediately into the juvenile justice system.
Right.
And that's a huge issue where
Right.
we've got too many students, the school to prison pipeline. It's an alternative to that.
Yes.
And your peers,
Yeah.
judge you, work with you,
Right.
and come up with often community service
Yeah.
sentences
Good.
that help folks out.
Good.
And it was really rewarding. It's a program that needs to be funded, and more broadly, it needs to be an important part of criminal justice reform, which I also have laid out on my website as one of my 6 major pillars.
Okay.
Not only supporting programs like Teen Court, but supporting efforts like Judge Hazelton's newly formed mental health court, which needs to be fully
Awesome.
funded at the state level,
Yes.
or supporting people like the Strive program or Life of NC, who really help incarcerated folks, once they've done their time, re-enter in our society. I'm
Right.
really passionate about that,
Right.
and I've enjoyed supporting that organization for some time. Joyce
Okay.
Jones was a great
Yes.
leader of
Yes.
that program.
Yes.
And we've got to take criminal justice reform head on, and it's fun and great to have those past experiences, having
Right.
grown up
Right.
and seen the value of what it can be to somebody before something bad happens.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, thank you for bringing that up, and
Yeah.
support your local Teen Court, everybody.
Yeah,
It's
that's
it's a very meaningful program.
So,
Yeah.
anything else that you need to bring up and
Well-
remind people that it might take a little bit of monetary resources to run a campaign?
Sure does. It'll blow your mind, and that's why I'm a big proponent of campaign finance reform.
Yeah.
But I'd love people to learn more about this campaign. I have worked to make myself as accessible to people as possible, to make the issues out there so you can see very clearly where I stand. I'm proud to be the candidate in this race who is the candidate of ideas and solutions. Go to brianfarkas.com. I just kept it simple,
Good.
BrianFarkas.com, and you can explore my website. All the issues are laid out there in a really interactive, dynamic way that you can easily find. It does take money to support a campaign. Would appreciate any contributions you'd be willing to make. This is a campaign that is people-powered. I've had over 1,900 contributors to this campaign.
Wow.
Small dollar,
Yeah.
and people who are ready for real change.
Right.
And that helps us get our message out across a number of different mediums. But I'm taking my message directly to people as responsibly as the COVID crisis will
That's
let
right.
me. We aren't knocking doors right now, but we
Right.
are reaching out in other ways. And obviously, we'd love to have you get involved not only through your vote, but volunteers. And we've got some easy ways to do that, again, on brianfarkas.com. So I would say go to our website, get involved. I need your support. This is an important part. This is a personal campaign for me that is about our people and our community and leaving it better than we found it. Because like I said earlier, through our schools and our community programs, you all invested in me. And I want that investment to start paying off. So I'm excited to serve. I'm going to hustle every day, and I appreciate, Dee Dee, all you do for our community and taking the time to make sure that candidates have the opportunity to present themselves to the public and get the word out there.
Thank you for coming in, and your passion is definitely obvious. It just flows through the camera, I think. So
Great,
good
thank
luck
you.
with everything. We need leadership like you in Raleigh.
Thank
so,
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. You've just been listening to candidate Brian Farkas for District 9, NC House, and on Meet the Candidates with GPAT TV.